You were listening to episode 153 of Mitolife Radio. I'm your host, Matt Blackburn, and today is a solo show. Going to give a little recap of what I learned this year, 2021, what I've been really interested in lately, just rant a little bit, and also answer listener questions. I've really been learning how to mitigate stress. I've moved twice in the last year, and this last move was really unexpected. I actually moved to the mountains of Colorado about a month ago now, and I don't share much about my personal life, but so many people were asking me, why did you move again? You had a beautiful off-grid property on a lake in Idaho, and I still do. And that is going to be the permanent location that we end up at. But I moved here, kind of back into the matrix, to be closer to my lady, Mariah. She has family out here and her work's out here. So because of my job, I work from home. I could work anywhere. And so I'm pretty mobile. And so I decided to just up and go. We packed up a trailer, thankfully, that I own this time. We didn't do a U-Haul like our first trip from Idlewild, California to Idaho. That was a lot more stressful, not owning your own trailer, because you have to rush to return it and rush to unpack and all of that. And so this move was a lot less stressful, even though we had one additional cat. So we actually made the drive from Idaho to Colorado with 2 cats. We used a natural pheromone spray just once or twice, and that seemed to help a lot. But they do really well in the car, and they weren't meowing the entire time, so it was nice. But just knowing that you have 2 cats on a 2-day drive is stressful in itself. But as people in the, quote, metabolic health community talk about, stress doesn't happen to you. It's your reaction to the stressors that matters. And your resiliency is determined by multiple factors. A lot of people go right to mindset and mental fortitude and all of these things. But I think the most foundational thing, more important than all of that, is blood sugar regulation, right? We're all familiar with the term hangry, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody. You understand that very well. So I've really learned how to snack and snack properly. I used to go rock climbing with my friend Garrett, and I would bring the usual suspects: trail mix, goji berries, cashews, almonds, walnuts, whatever. And then eventually I upgraded to jerky, venison jerky, beef jerky, and dried fruit. And that's been my go-to the last several years for snacks. So opposite of what I've been taught the past 11 years of studying health, which is eat less to experience longevity and better health and shorten your eating window and all of that stuff. I tried all of that. At one point, my lunch was blue-green algae with chia seeds, and that was my lunch for maybe 6 months to a year. And then I went from that to eating 10 to 20 oranges for lunch or 2 bunches of bananas for lunch. And I had the sugar part down, but I was missing the animal protein component, which you have to experiment with. What I've found with most people is that they're going to extremes. They're either eating none or they're on the carnivore primal diet and eating way too much. So life is obviously about balance, and nutrition is no different. I really feel for fathers and mothers in this line of work, because I can barely keep up with feeding myself with my busy schedule. I can't imagine having a family and children. So the more I work, the more I respect families and how they do that without having a private chef to keep up, because it's so time consuming to prepare meals. And I've found simplicity works best for me. So I really enjoy like soft boiled eggs and some fruit, some berries or something, or grass fed beef, ground beef, and white rice and butter and salt. Meals like that are what I thrive on, 10-minute, 15-minute preparation meals. Just getting back to simplicity. If you've been confused like me, going from diet to diet to diet for a decade, just going back to simplicity for a while can be really helpful, and minimizing the amount of ingredients and just making it stupid simple. That's worked for me. I get a lot of requests for what I eat in a day videos and day in a life videos. Lately, quite honestly, it's been quite chaotic where, I'll have A2 raw cow milk with some sugar to get me by until the next meal because it's better than fasting. And I think that's completely okay. We're human. We're doing the best we can. And you never know all of the things that people are juggling in life. So being gentle on yourself, being gentle with others, and encouraging that people move away from extremes like the primal diet or the carnivore diet or the vegan diet, I think is very helpful. And realizing that life is so much more than food. I know a lot of miserable dieter people who are just miserable human beings, and they're following this guru's advice to a T, and they're not happy, and they're just horrible people. So there's so many things. There's water, there's magnetism, there's light, there's relationships, there's the air quality of your home. I've recently been obsessed with humidifiers because this environment is a lot more harsh. I would say about 20 times harsher than my home in Idaho. I went from 2,000 feet to over 9,000 feet. So it's over a 7,000 foot increase in elevation. And it's really affecting me. A lot of people have reached out to me on social media saying that after several years, their body never adjusted, and so they had to move out of the mountains of Colorado. So I'm hoping that's not the case, but even if it is, it doesn't matter because that's our plan, is to kind of rebuild and work on a relationship and then eventually go back up to Idaho. That's the plan that we have, and it feels a lot safer up there than down here for sure, just being close to these huge cities. And the Denver airport is super creepy, all the Freemason New World Order murals and stuff, and the geoengineering spraying is wild out here. In Idaho, I would maybe see one a month, if that. And here it's been almost every day with maybe 2 or 3 days off here and there. But they spray like crazy. And it's called cloud seeding, if you want to look it up. And speaking of conspiratorial things, I'm actually shadow banned pretty heavily on my Instagram, which is the main platform that I've been using to get this message out about calcification, lipofuscin, fibrosis, PUFAs being non-essential, iron overload, etc. And so on Instagram right now, supposedly you can't even search my name. I can't be tagged. I've had countless people reach out and say they can't do the little @ sign in my name and tag me. So it's called shadow banning, and it's somewhat better than deleting the account, but it's almost the same thing. So that's been really interesting because I talked about Convid for a while and then I stopped, and now I pretty much never talk about it on social media. I make posts on my Telegram channel, which I link to on my Instagram, and on other channels like my YouTube, Mitolife Academy, like private little school that I have. I'll be a little more controversial in those videos, but I got flagged multiple times, like a slap on the wrist, for just mentioning methylene blue. And they inferred that I was selling drugs. I was selling paraphernalia, illegal substances, and I was just promoting transcriptions, methylene blue, which is helpful against V's of all kinds. if you can read between the lines there. So it's getting a little old that we have to play these games with these social media platforms. And I've never had the 30-day ban on Facebook, but I know some of my friends have. And it's just ridiculous because obviously there's ways around this, right? Telegram, there's BitChute, which I might eventually go from YouTube to that, or other video hosting sites that are less controlled than YouTube, because we know YouTube is as well. I don't think that the algorithm, the artificial intelligence beings, whatever you want to call them, the gatekeepers, have figured out yet our anti-vitamin D3 supplement message, because I feel that of all the information that I share, yes, fish oil will cause heart attacks. Yes, cod liver oil will do the same thing. And this multi-billion with a B dollar industry, the omega-3 industry, is a big deal. And now the vegans are all guzzling algae oil. That's been going on for quite a while, and there's not a lot of people challenging it. But there are even less people challenging the vitamin, quote unquote, it's a steroid, D3, that seco steroid hormone, quote, vitamin D. There are less people challenging that. And that is something to censor. You want to talk about medical mafia control, getting people on the pharmaceutical hamster wheel of death. You want to get the natural health community raving about D3 as a cure-all. It's for everything. It's required for your immune system, for brain function, for your metabolic function, for your heart function, for your liver function, your reproductive function, everything, right? That's what they claim. But it's a half truth. It's not the supplement doing all of that. It's 1,25 hydroxy vitamin D, the active form that doesn't get the spotlight. They only spotlight two molecules, cholecalciferol D3 and 25D. So D3 is the supplement that most people take, and 25D is the storage form that they measure. But they never tell you that there's one more molecule, and it even goes way deeper than this. This is still kindergarten level. There's one more molecule that you've never heard of called 1,25D. It is the active form. Trevor Marshall, PhD, has proven this on his website, trevormarshall.com. It has all of the published literature showing that it's 125D, the active form, that deserves all the accolades, because that's the one that works with the VDR receptor, the vitamin D receptor. And that's what activates all of your immuno warriors. All of your biological and chemical warriors come from 125D. But the catch is, we don't want more of it. It can get too high. And it gets too high when you take D3. It's like you have a ton of bread. This is the analogy that Jim Stevenson makes. You already have a ton of bread and you keep throwing flour in the kitchen. The chefs are going to make more bread, but you already have enough bread. So it starts overflowing. And that overflowing is that the D3 gets stored as D3, which does not happen in nature. That happens in supraphysiological doses when you're dosing this hormone in unnaturally high amounts. So ever since I learned about this subject, because I used to take it, I used to take all the krill oil, the algae oil, the fish oil, everything I speak out against today, with maybe the exception of iron, I took myself. And I'm so passionate about it because I'm starting to see the connection between vitamin D overload and calcification, because that's what vitamin D does. It increases calcium absorption. So you have all of these primal people, carnivore people, promoting spring water. especially Mountain Valley in the green bottle, and you look at the calcium content and it's insane. And so you combine D3 supplement with spring water that's chock full of calcium and probably iron, and that's a recipe for disease, for especially calcification, but every disease. What's even more amazing is that your body can make hormone D in the absence of UV light, because you always hear that we make it when UV light reacts with 7-dehydrocholesterol in the skin, and that's the primary way, but they've found that animals can actually make it in complete darkness. So we've been sold this lie that we need to supplement it, especially in the winter, to keep our immune system strong. The reality is we need to make sure that we're having retinol coming in, which is true vitamin A, because we have a RXR receptor, a retinoid receptor, that works with the VDR, vitamin D receptor. They work together. It's called a heterodimer. This is something that, again, you'll never hear about from the big vitamin D3 supplement promoting influencers. You'll never hear about RXR. You'll never hear about heterodimerize or heterodimerization, where the VDR and the RXR have to come together to work. And if you don't have enough retinol because you're slamming D3, which depletes retinol, that's been proven in the literature, then you're going to have a problem. So if anything, in the winter, don't take D3. That's what I would do. And take retinol from food sources. So that'd be butter, cream, eggs, milk, animal foods in general. Liver is very good. Ruminant animal liver, like beef liver. Make sure potassium's coming in, magnesium's coming in, both in sufficient quantities, which you have to experiment with, and you'll be fine. And if you decide to get like a spurty, quote, vitamin D lamp, like I have here in my office, it's not for vitamin D. It's for all of the other benefits that UV gives, like the anti-V effect, the beta endorphin effect, the activation of retinol, which UV light does, that actually breaks down vitamin A into retinoids. And according to Morley Robbins, that's way more important than the sequesteroid hormone D effect that you get from ultraviolet light. So people tend to just focus in on vitamin D with sunlight and with UV lights, when in fact that's such a small benefit of UV light. There's so much more to it. I'm so grateful to have this podcast and my brand Mitolife to use to get this message out. For years, I just watched the carnage and people taking every supplement under the sun at the same time, insane number of ingredients, which I used to do. And that's what's trending now, is these liposomal micelle liquid pump products with 20, 30, 40 ingredients. And it's really ridiculous. That's too much, especially when a lot of those things are questionable, namely zinc, ascorbic acid, vitamin D3, omega-3s. To me, all of those substances cause harm and imbalance in the body. And it's really about understanding the seesaw effect of what nutrients are connected to what other nutrients, and taking a step back and looking at how you grew up. How many vegetable oils did you consume? And then after you got off that and thought you were healthy, how many DHA supplements did you take? How many grams of omega-3s did you take? Because it takes vitamin E to balance that out. And you're not going to get enough vitamin E from food, because all the foods that contain vitamin E also contain omega-3s. So it's kind of taking a logical approach and realizing that in today's world, we do need extracts to come back into balance. And even if it's unnatural, we need these tools to bring back homeostasis. So the seesaw that most people don't understand that it even exists is between polyunsaturated fatty acids, like omega-3s in particular, which cause lipofuscin, and vitamin E. And then lesser well-known is the relationship between copper and iron. And everyone's all crazy about zinc in the natural health world. And you need zinc for testosterone and zinc for energy and for hormones and all of these things. But there's no talk of copper. It's kind of like giving all of the spotlight on 25D and none on 125D. It's a similar situation. I believe that nutritional supplements and devices have saved my life many times, but they both get a bad rap because people are misusing and abusing them. They're taking the wrong supplements. They're taking too much of the wrong supplements. And that's what gives supplements a bad rap. And that's why there's this movement of all natural. We don't need any supplements. And I completely disagree with that. Even though there's tons of misinformation and disinformation and so much confusion about what's helpful and what's harmful, I've really devoted my life and putting my energy into finding out the truth behind all of that. Which supplements not only don't cause harm, but actually help to rebalance the system. That's the whole reason why I started Mitolife, was to share these tools with you that I've used that have helped me tremendously. And what I try to emphasize a lot with this show is that it's a work in progress. I don't have it all figured out. I have a lot of the puzzle figured out because I happen to be connected with some really intelligent people like Morley Robbins, Adam Bergstrom, and out-of-the-box thinkers like that. But we're still putting the pieces together, and that's what's so exciting, is we're going to discover more and more, might be depressing, of different ways that we've been poisoned and how intelligently designed it was to deplete us of certain things, like Convid depletes copper, and you start to see these connections and say, whoa, now I get it. It's complex, but at the same time, it's simple. I just have to cut out the supplements that are hurting, like zinc, omega-3s, iron, ascorbic acid, and add in the ones that help, like vitamin E, K2, niacinamide, systemic enzymes, whole food vitamin C, shilajit. These are things that help bring balance back to your system, to bring ATP production back, to bring proper tissue function back. And you don't have to take a this for that approach like I get asked about every day, multiple times on social media. Matt, I have this. What do you recommend for this condition? One, I'm not a doctor. And two, I don't take a treatment approach to health. I take a CLF approach, calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis, these long-term accumulations that happen in the tissues. And the more I learn about health, like with this vitamin D thing, the more I start to understand how big of an issue these three things are. A lot of people simplify it and think that you get calcification just from supplements or just from hard water, but you start to peel back the layers of the onions and really see what the big game is with calcification. And there's that vitamin D3 supplement component that is missing in the discussion. And vitamin D3 causes hypercalcemia. It'll cause calcification. And even if it's taken with K2, like they said, always take your D3 with K2, it's not enough. It's like taking your vitamin E with your fish oil. You're going to cancel out the vitamin E. You're going to cancel out the K2. Just take the vitamin E on its own, cut out the fish oil, just take the K2 on its own, and cut out the D3. I think if I had to make it stupid simple, I would say eat more animal foods, high quality animal foods, high quality dairy, and experiment with goat, sheep, camel, cow, raw, pasteurized. Try all different ones and see what works for you, but don't give up on dairy that easily. And find a local farm and source high quality red meat and eggs and cheese. These things could be very beneficial in your healing journey, especially when you combine them with the Mitolife supplements. And also check out the Mitolife Academy on my YouTube channel. I try my best to share practical things, especially for the basic membership. I made a video several months back on the importance of potassium, the importance of salt, made one on sugar, just various topics that might help to expand your perspective. There's only a handful of podcasts that I listen to because the information is just so repetitive and there's not a lot of people pushing the envelope like Justin of Extreme Health Radio, actually putting themselves out there and going against the grain of mainstream alternative health. Because a lot of people will claim it's new and innovative information, but it's all pro-fasting, pro-caloric restriction, pro-vitamin D, pro-omega-3s. And there's only a small amount of people actually saying, wait a minute, all of those things are actually accelerating aging and causing a lot of stress in the system. And I think a large part of the mainstream message is that you can mitigate stress using meditation, breathing, Wim Hof, ice baths, and psychedelics and everything except for regulating your blood sugar and eating freaking food. And it's really frustrating because they're talking about everything else except for the most practical and easy thing for most people to do, which is just putting food in their mouth. Well, I can rant forever, and that's what the monthly Mitolife Academy Live is about. So I'm going to move on to listener questions, and hopefully this will help some of you guys out. The Strong Sisters, a guest on my podcast, Ashley and Sarah, ask, where are your chickens and goats? They are still in Idaho. They're alive and well. We have someone watching them. And like I said, we plan to get back to that. We're going to do a little mini homestead here in Colorado with just chickens and a geodesic growing dome from Growing Spaces. We're going to set that up in Idaho, and we eventually will. But I got a smaller one for us down here. And I really miss fruit. I'm a huge tomato fan. Even I could eat tomatoes just straight with salt, kind of like Adam Bergstrom does, and I love it. So we plan to grow a lot of food here when there's snow on the ground, and that's really exciting. Mariah's a master at soil chemistry. Gaja says, talk about your life and thoughts, how you're so motivated and driven and found your purpose. Yeah, it's been quite a process. I credit it to attending lots of health conferences and networking like crazy for several years. I am definitely an introvert, and I don't know how I went out so often and put myself out there for so many years. Surprised I'm still alive and not fully drained from all of that interaction. But what I was doing was observing and putting puzzle pieces together. And I don't think I would like attending a health conference now. I more prefer private gatherings just because I think there's not a lot there for me to learn, just things for me to observe and maybe make fun of. And that's a big part of what drives me, is just seeing what's sold and promoted in the mainstream alternative health community and wanting to offer an alternative. It's really what keeps me going in life, is to continue to share this information with people and like I said, it's ever evolving. I don't think anyone has it all figured out, especially myself. A lot of people have their health story coming out of a debilitating illness. I don't have that story. I just had cosmetic stuff, skin issues. I was mostly focused on longevity and anti-aging. And that's another thing that really keeps me going, because I look at the SENS Foundation and Aubrey de Grey and all of these supposed experts in the anti-aging space. And they're all, once again, saying the exact same thing. Autophagy, autophagy, autophagy. No mention of lipofuscin, of course, which shuts down autophagy. Time-restricted eating, which is a cool way of saying intermittent fasting or starvation. Caloric restriction. It's always the same messaging, especially in the anti-aging space. Once you get into that, it gets really myopic and really repetitive and boring. And so I take a much different approach to longevity. I like Adam Bergstrom. He quotes Beatrice Wood, which credited her long life to, quote, chocolate and young men. So I think there's many paths to living a long time. And I think the most important one, well above nutrition, is keeping your resilience to stress high and doing what you want to do most of the time. And for some people, it might be more targeted. Like, instead of going after excitement, going after comfort. I recently heard that from Luke Story on his show, and it really resonated with me. I see a lot of, especially men, chasing excitement instead of looking for comfort and stability, and kind of talking about family. And it was really the comedian Owen Benjamin that planted this seed in me several years ago to essentially pick one and settle down. And it is definitely stressful, 1000%, but it's fulfilling. And now I'm almost at the point where if I see a health educator that's not married or in a committed relationship that they're very vocal about, I start to question their integrity a bit, just from my observations and living with people over the years and seeing their interactions with women. It really opened my eyes to this aspect of health. A lot of people will say that emotional health is the most important, or spiritual health is the most important. I think they're all important. And I think that's a balanced approach, that yes, psychological and emotional issues can cause physical ailments, but it could also be vice versa. And iron-induced fear and psychological and emotional issues is 100% real, and most people are not aware of it. So I think real health is getting to that point where you realize that it's all important. All of the areas are important, and health is a matter of taking inventory of those areas frequently and assessing which ones you're weak in. Maybe you're on social media too much. You know, we're in the age of information overload confusion, not the age of Aquarius, information overload. And most people are poisoning themselves with information overload, just hours and hours and hours. And I see it daily on social media. People asking me questions that they can answer themselves because they're in paralysis analysis. They're in a frozen dorsal vagal state where they don't know what actions to take next. And maybe the next action is just turning off your phone, like I've been doing every night for the last 2 or 3 hours, just putting the phone down and not looking at it. Or for the start of the day, for the first hour. These things really make a difference. And I'm not saying you can't be productive or work hours and hours and hours straight on what you want to work on, but be really targeted with your time instead of being loose with your time. I believe that a combination of that and Shilajit, like the Mitolife Panacea product, can help a lot of people with, you might call it like ADHD symptoms or an inability to focus. Shilajit can help tremendously for that, and it has for me. Okay, next question. I'm going to be less long-winded from now on. Solutions for pulled, torn, or bruised muscles. My go-to is red light therapy, and if you combine that with elk antler velvet, I really like the capsules from Vigor, or the tincture or the tinctures from Shen Blossom and Crucial 4. They're all great. You could take all three of them plus red light therapy, and that would be extremely helpful. Natural health advice for someone with toenail fungus. There's a product from North American Herb and Spice called Nail It, and I would use oregano oil topically in that situation. Robin says top 3 health hacks. I'd say number 1, take breaks from social media and your phone. Number 2, block artificial light from your eyes at night. There's a ton of blue light blocking glasses out there. Just be sure you buy one that works. I have the ones that I like on my website. And 3, get beneficial light. If you don't have a lot of sunlight where you live, buy a 250 watt incandescent heat lamp and use that for maybe 10 or 15 minutes once or twice a day, or invest in a red light therapy device like Gemba Red and make sure that you're dosing up your body with beneficial frequencies of light. Someone asked thoughts on concentrate minerals. I used them for years. I think those with a combination of Mitolife Shilajit is really helpful. And those are a really affordable way to get some salt in and remineralize your water. Really specific question here. Do you use the Breville water filter white pod in the espresso machine water tank? Yes, I do. Even though I use filtered water, why not? It stops particulates from getting in there. Someone asks, 10 perfect meal ideas. Been a vegetarian for 39 years. Breaking free. Is quinoa edible? So I don't know about 10. I don't know about perfect meals, if such a thing exists in today's world. I mentioned my favorite quick meals near the start of the show. You know, rice and beef bowl with butter and salt works well for me. If you want to add in some harissa, red Moroccan pepper sauce with some grated cheese, that definitely takes it up another level. My friend Letitia Spizo just released, hopefully I said her last name right, she released a metabolic recipe book. So check that out for meal ideas. I think a lot of those are amazing. Is quinoa edible? You have to experiment. You know, I'm not anti-vegetables. I'm not even against raw vegetables. I think you have to really try them for yourself. And I think too many people make these blanket statements, which Adam Bergstrom often blows completely out of the water. Like animal foods are the only foods that contain retinol. Adam Bergstrom says that baby vegetables have preformed vitamin A in them. So it's about keeping an open mind and always being open to changing and adapting. Someone said, have you ever considered one-on-one online guidance? I used to provide consultations when I was living alone. I don't have the time for it now, juggling a relationship and family and friends and maintaining the house and all of these other things going on. I only have so much time. And so I chose to start the YouTube Mitolife Academy and do the live Q&A once a month. And there's right now only an average of maybe 15 people that are on there at a time. But for 2 hours straight, I'm answering questions. And a lot of people in there will just ask 10 to 20 questions for those 2 hours, and I'll answer all of them. So that's a really good way to pick my brain once a month. Someone asks, what do you suggest if people are having extreme detox symptoms to vitamin E? Try taking it with a meal containing fat, a large meal, if it's my PUFA Protect product. Maybe try one that's in a base of sunflower oil if you're sensitive to MCT oil. And try using a far infrared sauna. We just set one up here, and that's very beneficial for all sorts of skin issues, especially vitamin E detox, which will start pushing things out of the skin. I had a pretty extreme breakout of acne when I started supplementing vitamin E, especially in high dosages, like over 3,000 IU a day. And the far infrared sauna really helped to speed up that process of PUFA detox. Someone asks, which Rife do you prefer, the Pearl M or the Spooky 2? So the Pearl M, they're referring to the Resonant Light company. That's by far my favorite. That's been the most effective for me. I used the Spooky 2 for years and didn't experience too much of a shift. The Resonant Light has been incredible. I've really been enjoying the adrenal programs. They have an adrenal calming and balance. And those are the ones that I use most frequently when I'm here in the office working. In fact, I'm actually running that right now, and it feels really soothing and really good. And I think that's kind of an innovative way to counter the stress caused by Wi-Fi and EMFs, which are a lot more here in Colorado than where I was in Idaho. And so I'm doing as much as I can to mitigate. And the Rife frequencies, I feel, are one of the things that really help with that. How do I get off massive amounts of energy drinks? I would recommend working on your mitochondria. The mitochondria love magnesium. They love copper. In fact, those are the two nutrients that they require the most of everything, besides, obviously, glucose. So optimizing mitochondrial energy production is very helpful. Working on calcification, lipofuscin, fibrosis, lowering those will help. Red light therapy will help. Beef liver, red meat, oysters, shilajit, and whole food vitamin C will all help increase your copper, especially beef liver because of its retinol content that loads copper into ceruloplasmin. And you need ceruloplasmin to make energy in your cells. So a lot of people that are slamming monsters, I used to be one of those guys, poor mitochondrial function. And so just working on all of these things to improve your energy production will help a ton. What's a healthy amount of espresso? I've experimented a lot with this, and I find that it depends on my blood sugar regulation. So if I'm eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I can handle quite a lot. If I skip meals for whatever reason, or eat a less balanced meal, or just don't eat enough, then I can actually handle less caffeine. And sometimes I'll wait until the next meal to have it, or I won't have it at all for that day. So coffee and caffeine are rocket fuel if you have food in your system and a balanced meal that includes all three macronutrients, carbs, protein, and fat. Then espresso is not a drug, it's a metabolic booster. This is an interesting question. Ideal humidity. I don't know if there's an ideal level. I've been into it because of Adam Bergstrom. I think he was talking about humidifiers on Justin's show, Extreme Health Radio. And humidifiers have been saving me here in Colorado because I've been waking up with bloody noses. It's just so dry here compared to Idaho. So we have a humidifier in the living room and a humidifier in the bedroom that I try to run 24/7 or as much as possible, definitely throughout the night, definitely in the bedroom. And I know that it makes a huge difference. The one in the bedroom we got is from Costco, and it's kind of a weird futuristic design. It's kind of like a spire that goes up. It's like a tall humidifier unit, but I love it. It really shoots out a strong mist, and I definitely feel the difference in my sleep from running a humidifier at night. So stay tuned. I'm going to have Adam Bergstrom on the show before the end of the year, and I'm definitely going to ask him about humidifiers. Do supplements need to be taken daily for long durations to be effective? Absolutely. And a lot of people will go light on the dose to start and then gradually build up. I tend to do the opposite, and it's worked for me thus far, where I start at a very high dose and then I work my way down. I did that with vitamin E. Like I said, I used to take 3,000, 4,000, sometimes 8,000 international units of E a day. And now I just take 1 or 2 a day. And that's enough for me as a maintenance dose. But experiment. Of course, this is not medical advice. It's always wise to start with 1 or 2 whenever you implement a new supplement. Someone said, recently using edibles to help me sleep, which has helped. Any other options, though? I always recommend starting with light. So getting blue light blocking glasses and getting really bright light in the morning and afternoon. And maybe even using a bright light device, like a SAD light, or just a really bright full spectrum bulb during the day if you can't get out in the sunlight. Start there, and then you can get into other things like red light therapy. I'm still looking into melatonin from my research. Taking it doesn't decrease your endogenous production. So that's something to investigate. I've used melatonin transdermal patches before and definitely noticed a difference. Those make me knock out pretty effectively. Affordable ozonator for strictly dental health. Still SOTA. Yeah, that's the most affordable unit I've found from SOTA, the water ozonator. I like the Crucial 4 one because it's very strong. Compared to the SOTA, I'd say it's like 20 or 30 times stronger ozone that you put into the water. Like I've actually choked breathing it on accident when I was taking a drink. And so you have to be careful with the Crucial 4 unit to blow when you shut the lid on your water vessel to blow out the ozone gas. You're not taking a huge whiff that has made me cough for an hour or 2 in the past when I started using Charles's machine from Crucial 4. Someone asks about hair loss remedies and prevention causes. I would say the primary cause of hair loss is restricting carbohydrates. So going on a carnivore or a raw primal diet is really bad for hair. And you'll notice a lot of the proponents don't have a lot of hair, which is very interesting. So sugar and carbohydrates are amazing for keeping healthy hair. And I really like the North American Urban Spice shampoo. I'm sure there's other good brands out there, but that's a really clean product that people can use and rub that into the scalp every time they shower. Are there any legitimate EMF blocking phone cases? Defender Shield has one that's really good. What to do for high cholesterol? I would say support your thyroid function and your liver, and that's with retinol, vitamin E, K2, carbohydrates, and animal protein. Is it unhealthy to soak in hot springs? It depends. I would try out different springs and find one that works for you. I know some are high in lithium, some are high in sulfur, and some people might have a reaction to those. Aaron says, mid-30s, can't seem to get my acne under control. I would work with light, Gemba red lights or red light therapy, LED devices, or even just a hardware store, incandescent light bulb, if that's all you can afford, and a far infrared sauna. Those have helped tremendously in my journey with acne and eczema, especially combined with vitamin E and niacinamide. That's really the ultimate combo for skin health. And then just animal foods and increasing your resilience to stress. For those without an ozone machine, what about xylitol crystals to clean the teeth and support gum health? I think that could be beneficial. I would just be a little careful with xylitol gum. I have a lot of friends that have experienced gut disturbance with chewing gum. So if it's done after a meal, that's probably the ideal time to use it. What are your favorite vegetables to eat and why? I like root vegetables. I love beets and russet white potatoes. Speaking of that, the house we moved into has an electric stove, and boy, does that thing suck. It takes an hour or two, if that, to heat up. So now that I'm on grid again, I think I'm going to invest in a convection oven once again. It uses a ton of power, but to me, it's so much faster than the oven. And I've cooked countless potatoes in that thing. And that to me is a meal that works really well. Once again, we're individuals, so you have to experiment. But a lot of my meals have been just white russet potatoes, butter, salt, maybe some sour cream, a clean root beer. I like Natural Brew or Boylan's is another good brand. If you listen to Adam Bergstrom, either on my podcast or on others, he often brings up the power of the potato and how it's actually a complete protein source where it will bind to ammonia in your body and create complete proteins, which is really fascinating. I think the potato is an underrated food and it could be really beneficial for a lot of people. How did you start going off grid? I just jumped into it. I transitioned, of course, to a house with a backup generator, and that's always a good idea. But it was definitely a learning process being fully off grid. And there's going to be times where you lose power completely if something goes wrong. And hopefully you have a backup generator. In our case, it's propane to get you by. But it's definitely a different way of living. You definitely have to ditch the far infrared sauna and go to a wood burning one. And if you want to run really crazy biohacking machines, like I have the sensory deprivation float tank on the fully off-grid property, then you have to make sure that you keep propane stocked, especially in the winter when there's not full sunlight available. Opinions on coffee enemas. I've done a ton of them in the past. I think they could be extremely helpful. I think their biggest benefit is that they help to dump iron, excess iron in your body that's not regulated by copper. My opinion now is that ozone gas insufflations are a lot more powerful than coffee enemas. But if you can't afford that yet, then I think coffee enemas are a great place to start. How can the body detox on meat and dairy? I would say the body can detox easier with the nutrients found in meat and dairy, especially retinol in dairy. Dairy is a really rich source of vitamin A, and vitamin A is required to convert copper into its active form, ceruloplasmin, so you can manage iron via the reticuloendothelial system, or RES, iron recycling system. And the liver loves animal protein, which is found especially in red meat. I really didn't start to truly detoxify until I increased my animal food consumption. Can brown age spots go away with CLF protocol, or are the ones already visible permanent? No, I've seen them go away, and a lot of people have messaged me saying that their age spots have vanished on the CLF protocol, so that's definitely possible. Can you talk more about vitamin C, forms of it, how much can be absorbed, how it affects other vitamins? So a lot of people have misquoted Linus Pauling's work and said that he pioneered high dose ascorbic acid. But if you look into Morley Robbins' work and his comments on that, there's actually a good chapter to C and D or not to C and D in his Cure Your Fatigue book. He goes into that. And so the long story short is that the ascorbate forms, like ascorbic acid, ascorbyl palmitate, those actually deplete ceruloplasmin status. And there's a lot of articles backing that up scientifically. So those supplements, like liposomal vitamin C, will actually decrease your ability to manage iron and to generate energy, to clear exhaust, and to fight pathogens. because those are the three things that copper does. And ascorbic acid is devoid of copper, whereas whole food vitamin C, like camu camu, amla, rose hips, etc., fruit, actually contains tyrosinase enzyme, which contains copper, 2 copper atoms. So you want the copper with the vitamin C, you want the rutin. There's a lot of things that work together in whole food C to make it much more effective. And you don't need thousands and thousands and thousands of milligrams, like people have said, misquoting Linus Pauling. My resiliency product provides 300 milligrams of whole food vitamin C in a serving, which is 3 capsules. And that's really all you need. It's really safe to megadose because it's a food form, but you don't need to do that. But it can be helpful for a lot of people. All right, last question. How much magnesium bicarbonate should I drink a day? So I promote homemade magnesium bicarbonate, and I feel good on 2 to 4 ounces a day. But if you're feeling more stressed, or you have a larger workload, or your EMF exposure is high, it definitely can't hurt to increase that. About 3 years ago, I did an experiment where I was consuming 32 ounces, like a full wide mouth mason jar of magnesium bicarbonate a day. And after 3 days of that, I had loose stools for several days. So that's not recommended, but find your bowel tolerance, work up to that, and then experience it and then back off. And that's how much magnesium you can handle. So I'll have to do more of these solo shows because it seems like I can't answer all the questions. So maybe once a month or so, I'll do a show on my own. You guys seem to like my rants, even though I get tired of hearing myself talk. I'd rather hear guests talk. But really appreciate your support. I'm really grateful to have this podcast and this community to bounce ideas off of and to learn from you guys and to learn from my guests. I'm always learning from people, and I'll try to figure out a way to go live other than the Mitolife Academy, because I'm banned from going live on my Instagram because they keep restricting my account. I think I can go live on Telegram, so I might do that, and I'll put the link below in the show if you want to check out my Telegram. You can't ask questions or write anything there, but you can see what I post, which is mostly about COVID 1984 and solutions that I've found to that. And there's a lot of solutions for that. So Mitolife is my brand. You can find that at mitolife.co. And Panacea, the Shilajit tablets, are finally in stock. So if you've been waiting for that for a while, just know that we have a pretty good stock of those now. And to me, that's the most important supplement to take. It's the most broad acting because it's acting on the mineral balance of your body. And it contains ceruloplasmin, which is very rare. So it actually contains copper in its active form, which has pretty awesome effects with increasing oxygen utilization, ATP production, clearing exhaust, and fighting pathogens. The systemic enzymes are also in stock, the Dissolve It All product. A lot of people say they have a Herxheimer reaction just from taking one a day. So definitely start slow with that one. I generally take 6 every morning right when I wake up, or throughout the day. If I'm not on an empty stomach, then I'll take another 6. But that's kind of an advanced dose. You definitely want to start slow with that one. And Matt-Blackburn is my website. If you want to do some Christmas shopping, definitely a good place to go to give health to your family and friends. There's a lot of affordable products on there. For example, the immune throat spray. If someone talks a lot, those sprays are super soothing on the throat. Another good one is the Spurty D sun lamp on there. So if you don't see it on my site, you have to click shop on the top, and then that'll open up the catalog where you can see all the products listed. And that Spurty lamp is incredible for a lot of things. Again, it's not just vitamin D. You have POMC, alpha, MSH, ACTH, CRH, CYP, 11B1, breakdown of retinol, urocortin. So many things that happen beyond just hormone D that you get with ultraviolet light. UV light is really a drug. In Russia, it was actually used for essentially blood doping. So light is absolutely a drug, and that's particularly true when it comes to purple light or UV light. And if you know someone that loves ice cream, the Senchen reishi syrup concentrate, that's my favorite thing to put on ice cream. It goes really well with vanilla ice cream. It's incredible. It's hard to describe, but I'm a big fan of reishi, and that reishi syrup from Shen Blossom is one of my favorite products from them. And if you use the discount code Blackburn, you save 10%. So really exciting Mitolife products coming out soon. You have a magnesium capsule product coming out, a drinking water under-counter filtration unit coming out shortly, and some other exciting things. So stay tuned. Really appreciate you sharing my work and the podcast with friends and family. It helps us to move through the crazy censorship that's going on. I have some really cool shows coming up. Adam Bergstrom, Dr. Scott Scher. We're going to talk about methylene blue. And Dr. Jer, we're going to talk about the Rasha and scalar frequencies and the power of those. So I'll see you guys next Friday. Let's finish the year strong. Let's get supercharged, and Happy New Year.